Hello, how are you today? Let us see, we'll just get our do. Everyone is keeping well. Oh, get rid of the infinity screen and present. No. You rascal. Now, hello, welcome. My name is Stephanie. I am the founder of ESG Mid Easy, and today we are talking about myth busting ESG. I'll just give it a couple of minutes. I think we have a few more people joining. Please feel free to let me know if you have any questions, pop them in the box. Now, myth busting ESG. I am sure that you have, if you're here, you're obviously keen to find out more about what sustainability and ESG is and what does it mean for businesses. But there are so many misconceptions around it, and today is really just about, I suppose, discussing the nuance around some of them. Some of them can be true in some cases, but are typically an overgeneralization, and some are absolute nonsense. So, the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge. I'm not 100% sure on who Daniel Boorstin is, but this quote jumped out at me when I was looking for just something to kind of give us a little bit of a flavour and get started. And today, it is definitely essential that we understand that not um, not knowing 100% of a situation and like not really being willing to learn, but just taking the status quo can do you such a disservice in business. So the deliverables on the call today or on the webinar today is clarity on what ESG is and isn't, to debunk some common myths, and as will be a part of our um, standard kind of process, we have a step-by-step actionable advice at the end. So really things that you can do today to get started completely for free and really easily. And don't mind me, I am a small business owner, so I did not change the title when I copied this structure across. Also on that, check out the last episode, or whatever we call these things now, Cult Winning Business with ESG. It is really good. I was chuffed with it. So I am Steph. I probably looked a little bit sunnier in that picture. I have been having a bad time with the winter illnesses that are going around, but I am Steph. I'm the founder of ESG Made Easy. I'm so grateful that you're here today. I've been a business owner for the last 3 years and a passionate environmentalist for over a decade. And prior to starting my business in sustainability, I worked in maritime and construction. So, why ESG matters and why businesses get it wrong. So, what ESG, environment, social governance, is a smarter way of doing business. Environmental is how your business impacts with the planet. That's everything from your waste processes and the amount of energy that you're using, the intensity of the energy that you're using, the different fuels that are required within your business. And also then there's like, I suppose, more explicit environmental risks and risk mitigation. So making sure that if you have like a toxic byproduct, that you're not putting that into a local ecosystem or anything like that. But most businesses stay on the right side of what is legal and are a little bit unsure of what the other stuff is and if it would or wouldn't benefit them. Social is how you treat your people. So people, I suppose we kind of think of it as like a little circle, business in the middle. You have the people that interact with your business on a daily basis. They obviously matter a lot. Your employees, your senior leadership team, if you have any financial stakeholders in the business, or like advisors to the direct employees, and your customers are obviously vital. Your customers are probably often they're considered more often than your employees would be. And then if we take that as just like a bigger extension of the circle, it's also the communities that you serve, the communities of customers that you work with, and the direct neighbors and community that you're located in. So making sure that, your business isn't pumping out rock music at 3 a.m. in the morning and things if it's in a residential area. Just a general, there's lots of ways in which you can appreciate the community that lives nearby, and sort of have representation of your neighbours within the organisation. And then we have governance, so how to run your business. That's your ethics. It would include things like your commitment to charity or your commitment to paying a living wage, for example. Governance is all about transparency. So it's a little bit like how we've had some public figures say that they're pledging something, but actually the pledge is never, there's an investigative journalist that comes out and says, that pledge they made 18 months ago, it never happened. That transparency is vital for, a good social structure as well. But within business, it can be a good idea, especially if you are doing the right thing and you're keeping it all above board, to be really transparent with that. And then leadership. So how does your team lead, and how does your employees feel about it? Oh, hang on a second. Don't get ahead of me there, crazy person on the internet. The problem of misinformation, unfortunately, for people like me who work in sustainability, and for all of the people, like businesses or communities and ecosystems and animals that benefit from, consideration of ESG within business, which is literally just making sure that all of these things are risk assessed, that you are doing the best for the people and for the direct areas that you impact on the planet. Um, that's better for all of us. But ESG is so often mixed up and confused with other random nonsense. Um, and so this person, and I will play, honestly, I find it quite funny. But it's only funny on the outside. It's terrifying that there are people that, oh, are this confused. Just bear with them while he's. Okay, I have to say right now, ESG is not the start of a social credit system. This is insane. ESG it's like saying health. Health is the problem. And this is something that we covered in depth on our last webinar. But health is not the problem. ESG is just the subject. It is not a problem. It is an opportunity. It can create a problem if you ignore it. It has many ways in which it can pay you back if you do invest time and energy into it. And it also has many ways that it would absolutely get you in trouble if you decide to ignore it, bury your head in the sand, or don't act on it. So the idea that it is so often really recklessly conversed about, and sustainability is the same, and people sort of load all of these things into like one batch, but actually in terms of efficiency, in terms of your pricing position, and in terms of your costs, it can be a fantastic thing for the bottom line of your business to make sure you're not listening to this kind of content. Or if you are, because I mean, conspiracy theorists are right about some things, but this is such an overgeneralization. ESG is not a thing. It is a holistic sort of banner that includes your carbon emissions, your paying a fair living wage, making sure you're not buying anything that has modern slavery in the supply chain. Um, it's also about like not getting rid of toxic waste responsibly, making sure that your batteries are being recycled properly. Like all of these things all come into it, and then the governance parts, your documentation to support it all. So, what is at stake? I'm actually not going to try to read these things. They can be summarized by just these three C's: compliance, customers, and competition. So you can put your head in the sand and ignore it if you want, but the compliance part will catch up. It is becoming a regulatory requirement. There's so many reasons for this. Massive insurance companies, financial institutions, and governments are paying out because of the cost of the imbalance of greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere. So they are keen to make sure that we sort of mitigate that risk by being more responsible with our emissions at a business level. Your customers, depends who your customers are really, I suppose, but if you are working with public sector or any of the blue chip organizations, they also have made these big commitments to things. So they need, in a part of their commitment is to ensure their supply chain does it as well. So in order to be in their supply chain, you need to understand what this is and be able to communicate with them. And then competition. So this means that the other businesses are already doing it. So we have things like B Corp, which demonstrates business for good, and any organization that is B Corp accredited, they could be in your sector, and there's a big chance that any organization that has a tender process to work with them, they are going to highlight that these businesses have already got such a high level of due diligence done that they can confidently work with them and know that they're not going to get any backlash from it. Whereas if you don't have it comfortably, cordoned off and delivered on, then it can be the fact that not that your customer says, if you don't have this, we won't work with you, but they will choose your competitor because they have it and they know that it's going to save them hassle down the line. And so organizations that recognize, for example, B Corp, there's 650 internationally available sustainability standards. There's so many, the market is so crowded and confusing. But B Corp's a good example because it's quite recognized by customers. But for example, if business does have B Corp embedded, it just puts them in a better position, and it does mean that they have that kind of market advantage. So maybe you missed it. You didn't. I promise you didn't. It's not crypto. It's not a fad. It's not going anywhere. So don't worry, you didn't miss it. And also, the benefit of it is that even if you haven't done anything up to now, if you start to sort of interrogate, how could we be more efficient? How could we kind of save energy? How could we reduce our waste? How can we engage our employees? How can we make sure our supply chains are more robust and ethical? Guess what? All of those things are actually really good for business risk assessment and mitigating any problems that might come up in the future. So I've mentioned this, the insurers and governments are paying for rising climate disasters. So they are driving, this is becoming a thing that is just taken for granted. And the businesses that resist will be left behind. So myths, it is insane, but it is human nature. If you hear something enough, you'll believe it, even if it's absolute nonsense. Which is why fake news and the gentleman in the slides previous is a little bit terrifying. But we all are guilty of it. That's just the way it is. And no one's actually checked if it's true. And that's the big problem. So the first myth that we're kind of going to cover, ESG is too expensive. I'm not very creative. I'm pretty sure on each of these statements, I'm just asking, is it though? Because the myth is that it costs too much. But we work with like an entire ream of clients. And yes, there are certifications that are expensive and feel like a little bit excessive, or they're too much detail, or this is not necessary. But the certification might be expensive, but the things that are put in place, the actions, the practical part, the target setting, measuring, the metrics, none of those have to be expensive. They can actually be, they can normally be taken from information that already exists within the business, and they can quite often save a lot of money, or reduce energy use, or reduce your kind of cost of materials. So we do have an example of an organization that had a very inefficient bin. The product that was going into the bin was actually it didn't need to go to a waste. It didn't need to go to waste and be processed as waste, because it was actually just soil and stones. Their food processor, they take product direct from the field, and this was really just soil and stones. There was no other things in this trailer. There was a very kind of segregated waste structure within it. But this bin, or not bin, skip, sat outside. It had no lid on it because of the way the machinery worked. It couldn't have a lid, but it also had no like grates or mesh or anything to let the water run out of it. So this bin was not only unnecessary if you kind of analyze it or give it a bit of thought, but it's just the way it had always been done. But it was also inefficient in a way that if it rained, it cost more to get rid of that bin, that skip. Here's me. I can't stop calling it a bin to get rid of that skip. And getting rid of skips that can add up to thousands of pounds a year. And this particular one added up to five figures a year because of the weight of it. Whenever we had a conversation and we did a waste audit, and we had, we were really interrogating what is waste, what needs to be waste, what doesn't need to be waste, what can be recycled, and what can we move up the waste hierarchy. It was a unanimous decision that we could talk to the farmer that takes the other products and ask them, would this come in useful? Would you want to take it? And they said, absolutely yes. So rather than it having to be a waste product, it's actually going in. And again, because of the nature of the business, a lot of times the soil takes a real hit with the way the machinery works. So for them, having a kind of consistent um, influx of soil is actually brilliant, because that helps with the ground, and helps to kind of patch in areas that need it. Other clients have maybe, particularly in the food sector, have been able to either increase their charitable giving, increase their community impact by making sure that their food waste is not being kind of ignored until it's gone past spoilage. That there's in certain organizations, they might be able to sell it um, to farmers, so they might be able to sell it as a stock feed. In other organizations, that might not be suitable, but they could donate it to an organization like Fair Share. That's Fair, Fare, not fair as in Fair. A fantastic company that does a lot in terms of distributing food to people that need it most. And then other organizations where, again, you have the conversation, the head of culinary, the head chef, says, you know what, actually, if we thought about it, we could probably take this part of this and this part of that, and that could go, like, they can actually think about waste differently because they're challenged to do so. And obviously, energy efficiency, finding ways to save energy is cost effective. So, and the thing is, it actually mostly starts with conversation. So have a conversation. What is inefficient? Make the changes that are, the low hanging fruit for your business. And this, so it can save you money, it can make you money, or it can reduce your outgoings in terms of what are considered standard overheads, like your electricity and your energy use. Next myth: ESG is only for large corporations. Is it though? Small businesses are actually much more adept at having sustainability embedded in their organization, because they don't have the cash flow to be messing about and buying more than they can afford, and over packaging and over, like, if I'm buying a cake off a local bakery, they're not going to give me a cake and a six pack of cupcakes and a loaf of bread and a this. They're just not going to do it. It will not happen. The business model of small businesses are much more efficient because the people who run them tend to be more conscious of efficiency and the impact that that has for them. But having and as we go through this, I'll be talking about low cost and no cost ways that you can actually embrace sustainability, ESG, as a small business. So one thing is, if you are diligent in this space, if you're doing things, get certified. There's loads of free, like, okay, low cost or no cost certifications that you can do. You can use resources like SME Climate Hub. It comes up often in this, actually, because it is a source of incredible information. And in an era where there's misinformation all over the place, it's really good to go to something that, and the SME Climate Hub is government funded. It's really well researched. There's lots of universities have collaborated, and the people who created it were really informed in this space. And it is made specifically for SMEs. So there is that agility to, learn to adapt. And if you change your business, or you find out that your business model actually is really efficient, talk about it, because there's lots of buyers, particularly millennial and younger, that will actually be willing to pay a premium price for a more sustainable product that they know has, no guilt. So if there's an ethical demonstration of how things are sourced or how things are made or how things are, not wasted, that actually can be a real motivator for that portion of the market to purchase with you. So it can increase sales, and through that also there's a differentiation because you know there is a market for anything, and there's people who will still obviously go and buy the cheapest that's available, but there's an ever increasing section of the market that's happy to follow the kind of like um I don't know, the opposite of buy cheap, buy twice. So they'll willing to spend a little bit more so they don't have to replace it in 6 months. Um, and market trends. So like keeping yourself up to date with what's actually happening. Like also this can work in terms of employee and retention because you can look at what could you do for your employees, and something that we've just done as a tiny micro enterprise is the living wage certification. So living wage NI, the team were amazing. They were so nice. It cost a fraction of what I would have expected that it would have cost, and that demonstrates to the market that we're actually not only committed to helping our clients improve their sustainability, but we're actually really socially driven as well. And then so there's a misconception that ESG is all about the environment. Just like most acronyms, a lot of people can't expand them, or they can expand them, but there's maybe two or three different acronyms that share the letters. So it maybe gets a little bit confusing. But ESG is not all about environment. There's a massive part of it is about your social impact. And social impact can be demonstrated in how you treat your employees, fair wages, diversity, representation in the business, um, in terms of transparency and reporting on the initiatives that you undertake, the organizations that you support, the supply chains that you work within, and the ways in which your business is maybe helping to improve that on a social basis. There's also a massive thing about the prevention of slavery. I know there was a discourse on BBC. I can't remember the name of the program, but it's like an investigative program that happens on BBC. And when they were looking at tomato puree, for example, people were buying tomato puree in many of the main retailers that said made in Italy, but it was processed in Italy. But the tomatoes actually came from a region of China that has a real notorious history with slavery and capturing people and forcing them to work on farms with no passports. So we were inadvertently, as a collective in the UK, buying this tomato puree that was really unethical, but that should have been through discourse disclosed to the retailers, and the retailers should have made a decision not to purchase it. There is obviously grey areas on who knew what and who didn't find out what, so we're not blaming any party in this, but as a as an organization, like obviously you might think that this ESG sustainability, we're only talking about carbon footprint, we're only talking about waste, we're only talking about water use, but there really is this other massive part of it, which any organization in the UK or Ireland does, if as long as you operate within the law and you maybe are certified to something like BRC, if you're an agri-food organization or in the hospitality space, or a similar kind of standard, there is a level of due diligence through what is regulated here and those certifications that means that your social impact can actually really pull up your mark. So if you wanted to go to an ESG rating system, even if your environmental side in terms of the metrics and the reports might be letting you down, you'll have all the information that you need to improve that and to start to work on it from now. And you'll probably have a lot of this social stuff and the governance stuff covered off. If your organization is too small to be certified, you can kind of just balance yourself whether you think those ESG ratings are worth doing and whether that documentation would help to improve the organization overall. Sustainability is just a trend, is it though? It's really not. Sustainability, it's hilarious that I think people more often say ESG is just a trend, and they kind of maybe compare it to other because it started in the financial markets. It started in the financial markets because the financial markets are often populated by financial institutions that also have insurance parts to their business. And because the insurance parts of their business have been taking a hammering over the last 10 years, given the changes that have happened in the climate and how we're experiencing weather, they are pushing change and making sure that it's coming down the line. That's the reason why sustainability is being talked about at Davos. That's the reason why they have the World Economic Forum where they really highlight ESG. And it's the reason why governments are regulating it. Sustainability is not just a trend. And if you had said 100 years ago to someone, oh, yeah, sustainability is just a trend, they would have looked at you like you had 14 heads, because that sentence doesn't make sense. In order to sustain ourselves, to sustain business, to sustain a society, it has to be sustainable. We can't consume in a linear fashion. There has to be a circular element of it. And for generations, we've understood this really, really well. In the last 50 or 60 years, we probably have had a step back from that. And all we need to do is re-acknowledge that you can't take from a deficit. It has to replenish itself. It has to be sustainable. So no, it is not. ESG is not optional. The regulations are coming down the line, or they might already be affecting you. Your customers will already be asking for it. And a lot of times, particularly if you're in the supply chain of um, public sector organizations or blue chip companies, and increasingly other companies that hold themselves to a high standard, for example, B Corp, for example, EcoVadis certified businesses, or other, really sustainably committed businesses, they will say that they will only work with organizations that have XYZ. So what is voluntary becomes mandatory if you want to retain that customer. Um, there is hope that, as I mentioned earlier, 650 sustainability standards. It's kind of hard to imagine that any organization would have more than that. Well, obviously, they would never have close to that, but there's such a divergence across the industries and locations. In a lot of ways, the responsible and the kind of prevalent ones are actually working at making sure that they're quite interchangeable. So, for example, the EU standard CSRD is all about reporting your greenhouse gas emissions to the same level of detail as your financial um, annual reports, so your accounting reports. In the UK, they've kind of released an equivalent to that that's slightly less detailed, but it's close, and it's called SDS. And so for organisations that have CSRD in the EU, they can still operate in the UK because actually they have more detail. They have all the information that the UK standard requests and a little bit more. It might be a little bit more difficult for a UK company to go back into the EU, but it would only be a matter of adding 10%. There's not a huge difference. There's just a little bit of disparity. But you wouldn't also have to do CSRD. You would do like STS with an additional module, and that would be the reported handover. Business would still continue as usual. So that's an example in the kind of regulatory space. In the private sector, if you want to work with a big retailer, if you want to work with a big organization like a multinational law firm or a multinational IT firm, quite often they will have mandated standards that they expect to be upheld. This might be industry organized and, making sure that there's not like, oh, we'll ask for this and our competitors are asking for this and the other competitors asking for this. And the supply chain that actually provides services for all three of those organizations are having to do three things. They appreciate that that is not sustainable. So they do tend to have commonality and looking for like industry standards and industry requests. But none of them, well, some of them are saying we will reward businesses that attain voluntary standards, but quite often they'll say this is a voluntary standard, but if you want to work with us, it is mandated. So not every business in the country will have to do it, but in order to supply Super Sally's supermarket, that's what you have to do. Hope that wasn't too confusing. If it was, you can send me a message. I can make it a little bit more clear. Sustainable sourcing is too complicated. It's not. It can be if you make it. It definitely can be. But actually, Um, there are two sort of sections here. So there's practical actions. What you could do is look at what's available locally, look at what's available with green credentials, and look at really embracing organizations that are maybe minority owned, or their SMEs, or their community interest project, or community interest projects. Making sure that you kind of let them have space in your supply chain. Sustainable sourcing doesn't mean that you can't buy from big suppliers. It just means that you consciously create space for other people in your supply chain as well, which is actually better for, again, risk mitigation for your business. Because if you kind of diversify where you're getting your supply chain, yes, there might be an added complexity, but what you could do is create standard operating procedures and, you know, commit the resource at the beginning of that process. But it means that if any of those organizations suffered any changes, or it reduces the chances of anyone having a monopoly, or of any other businesses failure having an impact on your business's success. And then in terms of manufacturing, you can obviously improve your supply chain sustainability by looking, so it depends entirely what you're manufacturing, but looking at recycled products that are within your supply chains. And then also, now there is a caveat I would add to this, is making sure that the sustainably sourced items are as practical and affordable and as good quality as the alternative that's on the market that's potentially not as sustainable, or doesn't have the credentials. But you can work through it. That's why I didn't really put a myth on this one. This is one where there's nuance to it. It can be better for your business. It can differentiate your business. It can be complicated, but it doesn't have to be. Like, that doesn't need to be a bar that omits you from being able to actually do it. The transition of processes is going to halt our operations, or thinking that ESG compliance is going to halt operations. To be honest, I read this one and I thought, I don't even know anyone who thinks that becoming more efficient would halt their operations. But I'm not saying that I have met everyone in the world and talked to everyone in the world, so potentially this is a real concern. Any client that we've worked with, any organization, it's about making customer informed decisions on overall strategy, employee informed decisions, or operational employee informed decisions on processes that would actually help efficiency. Conducting business case assessment at the highest level of management, and making sure that the senior leadership team are bought in, and then making these changes incrementally to provide the benefits that have been outlined in that kind of business case assessment. So you would need to start with auditing, start with the conversations, make sure that you know what your customers are asking for, you know what the trends in your market is, and then shift the conversation in-house. Are we willing to move with the market? Are we willing to do what our customers are asking from us, sorry. And then moving into what are our employees saying about it? Is there an employee buy-in? Are they interested? Are they going to be key, will they have a key role in how we roll this out? And how can the employees help to inform your strategy? Because the person who's sitting in the corner office, I promise you, is not going to be the best person. Actually, and I'll add to this, the external consultant is not going to be the person who's going to give you the best idea for efficiency. They might be able to signpost you, but it will be your employees who are doing the functional part of your job day in, day out. They will know how to make things more efficient. Not a HR approved message at all, but also there is, and I'm not HR, so that's why some of these things come out of my mouth. But there is also a saying: get a lazy person to, if you want to know the easiest way of doing something, get a lazy person to do it, and then obviously check that they've done it properly. But they will find the most efficient way to get something done. And like, don't worry if they're relaxing, half an hour before anyone else would be, because as long as the job's done, and then just follow their lead. But it really is the whole idea is that you're kind of looking at ways in which time can be used more efficiently. Time is a very valuable resource, and obviously, then your energy, waste, water, and other operational costs are all running as efficiently as possible. Um, then being sustainable means higher prices. For who? Who do you think is paying the higher prices? Yes, quite often sustainable products in your supply chain might cost more, but you can also pass that cost on to your customer in most cases. Um, so the reality of this one is that sustainable practices can actually boost revenue and cut costs. Um, in terms of your energy use, yeah, you might pay a higher price for products that are suitable for refit than you would pay, for example, the build in the first place, or if you were putting those same products into a new build at a design stage. But you're going to pay less for your energy from then on if you have an efficient kind of structure, if you have an efficient infrastructure, assuming that you have a physical business or place of work. The premium is more than often passed on to the customer alongside other options in the market. And again, while there will be sections of the market that are never willing to vary from the lowest price, there will be sections of the market that are never willing to vary from the highest quality or the highest, you know, perceived quality of that kind of less tangible stuff. So make that kind like ethical business practices and standard certifications that demonstrate that. Um, but also there's the overall risk mitigation. So there's the like making sure that you're staying relevant, that you're in line with regulations, in line with legislation, in line with supply chain requests, in line with what your employees are expecting. So anyway, practical steps your business can take today. Do an ESG health check, a self assessment to kind of I like look at where you should start from. There are loads of these available on the internet. There's no point in me prescribing one because it would be better to get one that's kind of industry specific and and sorry, my dog is just sleeping very cutely. But yeah, it's better to get ones that are industry specific and in some ways that are relevant to the size and scale of your business and also your geography. So have a Google and find these kind of resources and prioritize quick wins, or you can reach out, we can also help you with that. But prioritize quick wins. So look at things that would be easy to do. So digitizing processes, making processes more efficient, maybe switching to a renewable energy tariff, rather than thinking, oh, we need to get solar and we need to get we need to have on-site generation of renewables. What you could potentially do, and at least in Northern Ireland until now, that is often at the same price, but a shift to a renewable energy tariff. Then step three, develop a roadmap. So really think about the business size, budget, and industry, and the level of ambition. So for some organizations, they'll want to do everything and it's going to be perfect, in the next 18 months. For other organizations, it's just not going to be a priority like that, but they'll maybe have it as something sort of on the back burner or like in a smaller way. In step four, then leverage resources. So definitely use tools like the SME Climate Hub. The SME Climate Hub, regardless of your business size, if you're a person in a business that wants to know more about sustainability and about it, I have actually a little present for you, but but one thing you can do is look at the SME Climate Hub, and it has free training resources, but it would be like training for your own knowledge. It's not like CPD or anything. So who can you ask to help you? Well, really take action today. Ask around, and these are really easy steps on who to ask and not how to ask, but what do you need to do? So follow ESG Made Easy. You can follow us here on YouTube. You can follow on LinkedIn. You can follow me personally, Stephanie McFoy on LinkedIn. And if you want to go to our website, www.esgmadeeasy.co.uk. You can sign up for our mailing list. If you would like a free copy of my book, ESG Made Easy, Why Sustainability Matters, send me an email, steph@esgmadeeasy.co.uk with the subject line free book. please just be aware. I do get a lot of my approach to email can be a little bit cutthroat sometimes. So if I don't recognize an email address and the title is like, I'm just interested in finding something. Okay, you're very likely to get deleted before it gets read. So make sure that the subject line says free book, all caps, and I will send you a free copy of the book. And it's not long and it's very functional. You'll enjoy it. Um, sign up for the SME Climate Hub. Yeah, regardless of whether you're a big business, small business, or just an interested person within a business, really good resource. And I have nothing to do with it. I just appreciate that it's a really valuable resource. At a leadership level, have a meeting, have a conversation about it, see what's going on, see what the level of ambition is, and ask your team for the easy wins in terms of efficiency. In terms of making sustainability accessible, at ESG Made Easy, we simplify ESG. We have streamlined tools, easy to use templates, and expert advice for our clients and to help them just really understand what this is. Um, yeah, no jargon. Honestly, I'm so sick of hearing. And it's insane because there's other consultants or resources that just want to make it more and more complicated so that, well, if you don't understand it, you have to work with us. And it's just such an irresponsible way to do business. I only want you to understand what this is and for your business to really embrace it. And hopefully, my big goal personally is that if we can impact our clients and our clients' businesses to become more sustainable, to become more energy efficient, and to be better places to work, that's us kind of chipping away at making the world a slightly nicer place, a slightly better place. And for the people obviously that work within those organizations, they'll reap the benefits. But yeah, so we help you with jargon free, clear, actionable strategies. And we have some incredible success stories that have our clients that have been thriving with our support. If you want to find out more about us, feel free to check out the podcast. We are very excited to announce that there's going to be an epic change in the podcast in the next coming weeks. Obviously, podcasts are totally free. And if you do want the book, this is a little cover of it. Let me know. I'll send it across. But yeah, so if you want to pop answers in the chat or answers in the comment, if you're watching this in catch up, please let me know what are your biggest ESG challenges. More than happy to kind of interact in the comments and in the chat and see what the common issues are, and if we can, pardon me, create webinar resources to answer those questions, I would be happy to do so. So you do need to give me sufficient detail for me to be able to do that. But are you confused by any of the regulatory complexity? And I can appreciate that a business would maybe, if you're reading a lot about it or you're reading it just on the Guardian or on your wherever BBC News, wherever you're getting your news from, you might actually be overwhelmed with the thought of you're going to have to do 10 of these. But what we would always advise is that you do kind of just a customer assessment and pull together all of the things that your customers have asked for or that they have published on their websites over the last you know probably 3 years at this point, and see what they've kind of committed to, where they're going with it. For example, if you have a key customer that you don't want to lose and they have committed to SBTI, the Science Based Targets Initiative, that is a really clear indicator that you will have to do that if you want to continue to be in their supply chain. And other considerations to include in that is customers that you would love to work with. So if you're not currently on the tender list or on the preferred suppliers for a business that you would really love to be on, we can help you to look at what it is that they're looking for. And that means that the next time they kind of open up that opportunity, that you could potentially push out somebody else who has decided to put their head in the sand and do nothing about this. In terms of cost concerns, are you thinking that it's too expensive? Do you think it's going to affect your profitability? Let me know your thoughts on that, and if you have any challenges around that. And we can definitely do well, do you know what? I'll see what you think, but there is potential to have like a bit of an advice one on that, and maybe have like external people come along and give their insight. Is there a lack of internal buy-in? Maybe you're not at a senior leadership level and you're maybe frustrated. How are you going to get leadership and the teams underneath them? How are we going to get everyone on board? How are we going to move it forward? In terms of measuring impact, how does that work? Have you maybe looked at some of the mainstream carbon management systems and they're very expensive or suspiciously cheap? I would definitely recommend have a chat to me about this. We work with an incredible product that is ridiculously priced for the value that the platform gives and the insight that it gives. But it's as important to make sure you're not overpaying for your carbon management system as it is to make sure you're not underpaying, because if you're not paying for the product is you. Your data becomes the product of the organization that's happy to do the footprint for free. I definitely think it's really concerning, and there's also uh, a concerning trend of organizations that are happy to let you do your initial carbon calculators with them for free, but that's because they'll jump the price then whenever it comes to your refreshment. So it's better to actually understand the pricing process from the get-go, so that you know in 3 years time you're not kind of locked in with an organization that has access to all of your data that potentially is not very functional or isn't really giving you the output that you need for this to be really useful information. And yeah, that was free and then became really expensive, but they sort of think that, well, you've got sticky feet, you've come in here, you're covered in honey, your feet are going to stick to the floor now. I would really, really suggest don't go with the cheapest option. Obviously, don't go with the most expensive option unless you like to do that. But chat to us, because we work with Sustaineo and their product is really fab and much more fairly priced. And then in terms of sustainability certifications, are you confused? Is there any that you're like, well, we'd like to do that, but it might not be relevant? Just a heads up, everyone would love to be B Corp. Or anyone that knows what B Corp is tends to want to be B Corp. B Corp has quite a high standard, a high bar to jump over in terms of becoming B Corp. So unless you have taken these fundamental steps and you pay a living wage and you have a lot of your social impact considerations well thought through, documented and targeted on improvement, the same for your environmental, the same for your charity and community kind of structures or infrastructure, it's probably not worth you doing it. And I don't say that to try to put you off. You can still do the impact assessment, you can still get your initial marks, but if you are scoring less than 85 or 87 through the rigorousness of the due diligence part, it would be pretty you'd be pretty close to the bone. So I would probably recommend that you don't do it now, that you make those fundamental improvements first based on what your assessment does say, and then kind of take it from there. And in terms of EcoVadis, I don't know anyone who does EcoVadis voluntarily. It tends to be one that is mandated by your supply chain, so you can't hold it off. But with both B Corp, EcoVadis, and other standards as well, just be mindful they're not normally looking for you to like start at a gold level. Well, oh no, sorry, that's not true. B Corp is looking for you to do that. So only the best businesses that already have things in place should go for B Corp. EcoVadis is it's actually for everyone, and it's really not I can't think of the word, but it doesn't punish you for not being perfect yet, but it does give you a structure to improve that kind of supply chain ethics. But yeah, busting myths is just the beginning. ESG can be so accessible if you're getting your advice from the right people. As Baz Luhrmann said, be careful from whom you take your advice, but be patient with those who provide it. We are a very small business, so these webinars come out when we can. But yeah, it can be profitable for everyone in the business. Small changes can lead to a massive impact, and it's not just us standing in the corner waving a flag saying this is a good idea. Financial markets, investors, regulations, customers, and the government are all pushing it forward. So I am happy to offer anyone who is here watching this video in real time or afterwards, which might be insane because it's such a ridiculous offer. I want you to get started. I don't mind if you get started and then decide that you don't want to do the next stages of it. I don't mind if you're a really small business and actually all you need to do is to get started with the strategy and then you'll deliver it all yourself. Or if you want to just understand where you are and maybe get this to fit into a plan that you have next year in terms of like a full consultancy package. But um anyone who is here now, we have a sustainability strategy for 2025. I would have to add a caveat to this. If you're watching in the future after 2025, we cannot stand over this price because there's no way that we can continue to deliver it at that. But we have an entire sustainability, getting started with sustainability package that includes be your own sustainability consultant DIY book that is it's written it's underpinned, or like fundamentally it is based on the um Global Compact, which is an internationally renowned standard of everything that there is to include in sustainability. The idea isn't that you're going to do every single item on it. It's not that kind of list. It's that you'll read the list and say, okay, those three things are attainable for us, and that is us covered with human rights, that is us covered with labor, that is us covered with communities, that is us covered. So each section you would basically choose what you need to do, and we can help advise that because this package also includes a 90-minute one-on-one, or it could be two-on-one because Cora could come as well. So there could be two of us on the call with you. You could this could be a small team in your business. It could be just yourself. It could be yourself and one other person who's maybe going to go and do the rest of the kind of work for the strategy on your side after we finished. But it's a 90-minute call that will essentially describe and help to contextualize the rest of the packages, or the rest of the um, documentation that we've created for you. It will also include a materiality overview, so not a materiality assessment, but an overview so that you can help you understand what is material in your industry, what is material in your business size, and then asking your employees or your senior leadership team to complete a little survey, and then also including what is material for your employees and your senior leadership team. With those things considered, you could start to look at how to prioritize what your sustainability strategy will be for the next it actually could be for the next like 1 to 5 years. Because if there's something that it's coming up in your industry, it's coming up in your business size and geography, and it's coming up as a priority for your employees, that should be the first place you take action. So even if that means that that's the most expensive thing, or but it gives you that insight to understand, okay, water efficiency really is a big one for us, we need to do that. And using your knowledge of your business, you'll also be able to see which ones would have a financial benefit for you too. So an overview of materiality for your business, created specifically for your business. Stakeholder mapping, so that's looking at who are your customers, what is your business structure, how do people report to one another, and then creating a stakeholder overview so that you can understand that about your business, which means that when you go to make decisions about sustainability or anything else that might affect them, you kind of have this collated understanding of who do we need to run this past, who do we need buy-in from, and where do we need to go with this. The full DIY functional guide to sustainability document requirements, that is exactly the one that has been created based on the Global Compact. It's a really, really thorough way of understanding sustainability and applying it practically within your business. And we will also put in, obviously, the book, which is free for anyone on this call. And we have like the ESG alphabet soup guide, which just sort of is a go-to, something you can flick through if you are lost on the acronyms. There's also a section of the book that has it, but it's not as up to date as this little thing. So thank you so much for joining us. Sign up for next week's webinar. It is called What is B Corp? It will be delivered by Cora Purdy. Give her a follow on LinkedIn as well. And thank you so much for your time today. Ciao. Bye.